I have always had an overactive imagination. When I was a kid, the world inside my head was magical, full of imaginary friends, dancing pandas, and talking unicorns. But it also had a dark side. Ghosts, monsters, classic terrors from mythology and legend come back to tear the world apart, starting with my tiny child brain. Basically, all kinds of horrific things that no one but me could see. But on the whole, I really felt like my imagination worked for me. I mean, I could talk to unicorns whenever. And lucky for me, the kids I knew got me. But the summer when I was 9, I was getting ready to start at an all-new school with all-new kids. And I was suddenly very aware of how not normal I was. So, imagine my sheer terror when I found out I'd be going to sleepaway camp for the first time that summer. Yep, that's right, I'd be in the woods for a week with a bunch of normals. The normals, I'm sure, would think that the woods and the camp was full of fun and natural wonders. But I read stories, and I knew all kinds of crazy shit lived in the woods. Vengeful gnomes, hungry eel monsters hiding in the lake, very rude gods turning people into trees for no good reason. The woods are not great. But what awaited me at camp was so much worse than I could have anticipated. Enter the Biffy monster. For those of you who didn't go to Girl Scout camp, a Biffy is an outhouse, and the Biffy monster is a creature that lived in the outhouses at camp. Yes, this is a creature made of poo. The Biffy monster lived inside the pit of the outhouses and kidnapped girls who came in to do their business after dark. Once he picked a victim, he would reach up through the potty hole, grab her, and pull her into the pit, forcing her to live inside the Biffies until the end of time. The Biffy monster was so much scarier than anything my stories had prepared me for. He was inhuman, he preyed on people in their most vulnerable moments, and he was super gross. And worst of all, he wasn't some ancient creature from mythology or a messed up bedtime story from the 1800s. He was here, now. And somehow I was the only one who was scared of him. As we walked back to our cabins that night, the normals joked about the Biffy monster. Like, who would think that was real? Just me, apparently. Thankfully, this all went down halfway through camp, so I only had to survive 2 more nights without getting snatched. So here was my problem. I couldn't just use the Biffies. I couldn't risk being kidnapped and living the rest of my life in a pit of poop. But I couldn't not use the Biffies. I wasn't about to be the paranoid in the woods girl who also poops outside. But I could figure this out. I would not be a victim. I turned, like any rational 9-year-old would do, to the facts. I knew the Biffy monster only strikes in the Biffy, only operates at night, and has a consistent MO. Reach, grab, pull. It's true. So I would only use the Biffies during the day, and I would keep the potty lid closed as much as possible to keep the Biffy monster from grabbing me. It was a simple strategy, but one that I hoped would save my life. The day after I learned about the Biffy monster, I was on high alert. The hair on my neck stood on end every time I even walked near a Biffy. And when I actually had to pee, so stressful. Turns out it's dark in outhouses, even during the day. After dark, as I brushed my teeth and prepared for a hopefully incident-free night, I had a horrific realization. I hadn't come up with a liquid strategy, a rookie mistake, I admit, and now I really had to pee. I ran to the Biffy, peed as fast as I could, and sprinted back to my bunk, my heart racing. I was safe, and I only had 1 more night to go. The last night of camp, I went to bed with an empty bladder and a heart full of hope. But I woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. I had food poisoning, and I needed to throw up really bad. I had to make it to the nurses' building on the other side of camp, 3 Biffies away, to be precise. This was the most stressful thing I'd ever experienced. I was sick and alone in the freaking woods, terrified of getting kidnapped by a poop monster. I did not have a plan. I just ran. I chubby sprinted past the first Biffy, then the second. As I ran, I felt the darkness of the woods closing in on me, as if every ghost, cannibalistic witch, and hook-handed psycho from my stories was hot on my trail. By some miracle, my immense fear stopped me from puking everywhere, but by the time I reached the third Biffy, the food poisoning struck again, and I had a choice. Be the paranoid in the woods girl who pukes all over camp, or go into that Biffy and face my fear. So in I went. My heart pounded in my chest. My senses were heightened. Not a great thing in an outhouse. I could sense the Biffy monster lurking below, suddenly aware of my presence, moving towards me. When I leaned over the potty hole, I swear I saw a glimpse of light, the Biffy monster's eyes staring up from the pit below. I was about to be his next victim. I threw up in his face, slammed the potty lid closed, and sprinted the rest of the way to the nurse's building. I woke up the next morning, and camp was over. I had survived the woods. Thank you. I was also very proud. I was definitely still not a normal, but that last night, running and puking my way through the forest, I faced my imagination and my fear, and I tamed them both. Or so I thought. See, I left camp, but the Biffy monster didn't leave me. Once I was back in civilization, I couldn't help but wonder, could he strike here? Sure, it's outside his normal perimeter. Sure, it's a totally different sewage-related environment. But he was wily, he was determined, and he was pure evil. I knew it in my heart. No bowl was safe. But if he could evolve, so could I. I stayed vigilant. I turned the lights on to pee at night. I flushed and fled. I closed my bowls. Over the years, I've managed to get my imagination under control, for the most part. I can roll with the normals, but I still see monsters that no one else can. And the Biffy monster, sometimes I still think he might be there, lurking in the shadows. I know, he probably doesn't exist, but I would rather be safe than sorry, wouldn't you? My fight against the Biffy monster isn't over, and yours begins tonight. Just remember, stay vigilant. Don't be a victim. Close your bowls.